1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, welcome to the cross-section exercise. This is just going to be a quick demo showing us how to do a cross-section. What we're going to need today is a pencil, a pen, a couple highlighters just in case you want to label things, your protractor to make your dips, and then obviously your cross-section. So on this side here we have the topographic map, and then on this back side here this is our cross-section. So what we're going to do first is take a piece of paper. I just have a piece of printer paper and I split it in half, and I'm lining it up here to the line of the cross-section, right? So you can line it up as best as you can and try and make it as perfect as possible. There we go. Close enough, right? As Hugh says, it's good enough for government work. And then I have a piece of tape at the bottom here, just kind of holding it in place, but you don't have to do that, that's optional. Then what we would like to do is basically figure out where our rock labels are, or which rock formations are which. And so this is, we have this light gray, this darker gray, this white, and then goes back to the darker gray and light gray, right? So we'll go in first, and basically what I like to do is go multiple steps, right? Don't do everything at once because it can be confusing. And you just go through and find where each rock is, right? Or where each rock layer is. And something I'd like to point out is that you have individual spots here, right? These dashed lines here represent our rock layer, right? So this dashed line here represents the difference between the CMN, right, and then the CC, okay? And so that's what we're going to use, those dashed lines, to figure out where each one of our rocks stops, right? So what I'm going to do first is go through and find each one of these, right? I'm just going to do tick marks here, right? And I'm not doing anything yet with my dip angles. Something else you want to get is Brooks Well, right? Most maps usually have some sort of placemaker or an indicator that you can use to line up this cross section onto the next page. So I'm doing a little triangle there, and I'm going to label that as BW for Brooks Well. And then we can keep going. And if you need to pull back the page, you can pull back the page, that's fine. See how this one here isn't necessarily a rock layer, but it's just a line. And that might be a stream, that might be a road, we don't know, we don't care. All we're doing right now is figuring out where each layer stops. So I'm continuing to go through, and I'm marking each time you have a new rock layer existing, right there at the dashed lines, like we were saying. And I think I have them all, so I'll go ahead and pull this paper back and just double check and make sure I got everything correctly. Right, so here's our full map. And now we can start labeling each rock group, right? So we see here this white layer is our CC, and then the dark layer is CMN, right? And then you also have CCR, which is the light layer. So we're going to go ahead and label this one, right? CCR. This is our CMN. Using a very thin pencil lead. And I have my CC, this is all CC right here, this white, where Brooks Well is. And then you have this little divot here, right, of CMN. and then it goes back a little bit to CC, right? And we'll draw this out. And it goes back to CMN. And then to CCR. And then this last one here is OCL, okay? So now we have our rock indexes, we have the Brooks Well location on the map, and then we also have the labels of the rocks. I'm sorry if you hear my cats in the background. And so now what we're going to do is take our dips now. And so this is where we can basically take this page and pull it out, right, and get a better look at everything, okay? And I know it's kind of difficult to find those dips if we're not familiar with cross sections, and it's a little bit hard to see on the scan copy, but we're going to do our best and we're going to work on it together. So now I have to look for my dip symbols, right? And my dip symbols are represented by that T, right? The funny looking T shape, right? And so depending on which way my T is going, we'll identify which way my rock layers are being dipped, right? So if it's going this way, my rock's going that way. And if it's going this way, my rock's going that way, okay? And so I go ahead and I find out where all those dip symbols are. And what you want to do is there's dips all over the map because there was a geologist sometime, you know, looking at these rocks and finding the dip orientation. But what we're focusing on here is this line of cross section. So we're going to look for the dip symbols as close as we can to this line. And so we're going to start at the top and work our way bottom. I see here there's a 25 in this top left corner, and it's facing this direction. And I'm going to keep going and see there's a 10 here, but it's facing this direction, right? It's facing west. And that's not really going to be helpful for us because we're doing a cross section along the north to south orientation. So we're just focusing again on dips going this way and dips going this way, north and south, or as close as we can, right? So there's our 25, like we said, and now, you know, we can move this page around and look at it since we have all this lined up. And then you have a 12 here, and you keep looking. There's another 10, but it's so far away we don't need it necessarily. Right above the word Virginia, you have a 7, and that could maybe be useful. We'll take a look at it in a second. We're going to keep going until you get to the bottom here at OCL, and you see here, where are we? There's one in the corner here. I think that says 17, and then there's also one here that says 12. And it's not perfectly lined up on the line, but it's okay. For this lab exercise, we can go with it. So now that we have these lined up and we have our dip symbols organized, we're going to go ahead and put the dip symbols on this page, right? So we're almost done with this part. So here, I'm going to go ahead and say this layer is going to be dipping 25 degrees north. So I'm going to inference that down here, and I'm going 25 degrees. And I'm going to keep going. And I couldn't really find anything lined up here. In fact, actually, there looks like there's actually something here that we might be able to use. So it looks like a 19, and we might be able to use that. It's going north for this layer right here. But if you can't find a dip symbol, it's okay to basically take the assumption, again at this level, it's okay to take the assumption that if this layer here is dipping 25 degrees, the following layer behind it is probably dipping a similar parallel angle too. So, you know, if this doesn't work out with the 19 degrees, we'll probably go back to this 25, or maybe take an average of the two. So right now, I'll say 19 degrees. And again, it's going this way. And then I'm going to keep going. And I have a 12 here, and that's going to be basically lined up here. And then also, this little marking here, right, you gotta line it up again. Make sure we're all straight. This little orientation here is probably just going to be a little blip, right? So we're using that 12-degree angle right here, right? Because again, this is going to just be a small little dip in the bed. It's not going to be anything significant. We're going to keep going. And that looks like a 7 maybe. So we'll do 7. Alright, keep going down here, and there's our 12, right? So let me zoom in here and see if I can show you guys everything. Take this tape off. I need to, so basically here we have our 25 or 19 Brookswell location, our 12, our 7, and our other 12, okay? And then we're basically going to take this information and overlay it on here. And so you see how Brookswell is now lining up to most of the map, and this is what we're going to use. So what I can do now is take these points and lay them down on here. It doesn't have to be too perfect, but try your best. And maybe something there. Alright, so now that we have all these tick marks, we can basically start using those dip orientations to figure out where they're going, right? And I know some of us don't have a protractor at home, you know, we're not all nerds like I am, but we'll provide these in class, and they're easy to use after you get the hang of it a couple times. But you basically get this line here, this T, and you're going to line it up with your rock layer, or the tick mark representing where the rock layer is, right? And try and get it as perfect as possible. And again, I'll have this here for reference, right? And then this first one here is 25. So I'm going to take that, right? See here, lining it up. And you can count, this is where 0 is, 10, 20, and then that half mark right there is 25. So I'm going to basically take this, and it might help to have another page in the back, right? To mark it, I'm just going to mark this board that I'm using, right? And then you line it up, right? So you're making a straight line from your rock dip there, and you can draw this out. So there you go, that's our first dip. And then we have a 19, okay? So we're going to keep doing the same thing, right? All you're doing is being as close as you can to that tick mark, right? Laying it right over there. and then finding 10, 15, there's 20. So we go 1 degree back from 20. Oh, I moved a bit. If my hands are shaky, it's because I drank a lot of coffee this morning. There you go, there's your second one, right? And now you have Brooks Well, it's hanging out here, right? This is that little dip we were talking about, remember that? And because it's not really significant, there wasn't any dip symbols on it right here, we're just gonna do a little like blip, right? Just a little artistic blip for it. But I'll throw that in a second. I'm gonna go and do this 12 first, right? And make sure you're looking at the right dip angle for each tick mark that you create, right? And so now I'm flipping to this side and you see it goes to 180, but on this second part here, there's basically going to be 0, right? So you can read it 0, 10, 20, or you can go 0, 10, 20, and 180 is on this side too. So you can use it either way. So we said 12, so there's 0, 10. 12 is going to be slightly here, right? You gotta line it up perfect, or as perfect as possible, right? Nobody's perfect. And there we go. See how this is a more shallow dip because it's 12 degrees, right? Compared to these, right, that were 25, this is a more shallow dip angle right here. And then you keep going, right? So here's 17. I'm gonna go 10, 15, 1, 2, 17, right? And so see how now this is lining up, and I'm gonna go, see that? And then the last one is 12, so another shallow layer. I'm going off the page. There we are, right? So this is what our cross section looks like with all the rock layers included. Hold on, my cat's getting in the way. Oh my gosh, hey, get out of here. Psst, psst. Sorry about that. We have all of our rocks dipping in the same orientation of the angles that we found on the cross section, right? So what we're doing effectively is taking this information and data and we're creating a cross section out of it here, right? And what we can do now is label, right? Hey, 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 back up, go, 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 get out of here. So now we have everything lined up, right? And we're gonna just go ahead and label everything, right? This should be easy. We have our CCR right here. You have your CMN. This is all CC. And then remember, this is the little dip. So this is all we need to do necessarily for this. Just go blip, right? Can probably be less shallow than that, right? It's up to your interpretation. You're the artist here. And then we go, this is CC2, right? And we can maybe label this up here and say this is a pocket of CMN, right? And then you can do from CC back to CMN. And then to CCR. And lastly, OCL. Okay. So this is now all labeled. You have your dips in place, right? The one thing we're missing is our anticline line, right? And this is something that is useful to have on the map, and geologists like to see it. It's just more information and data, right? Here it is, right? So there's this dashed line and it's labeled the Powell Valley anticline. So we'll line up and I'll make this mark here. And I'll say anti, right? That's the anticlinal hinge. And in structure, we've talked about anticlines where they have that A shape, right? And so we can see that in this map. And so we'll line it up. And see too, now all of my dips are lined up with the tick marks that I made, right? So I'll go ahead and do that mark right there. And I'll do a dashed line to represent the anticlinal hinge, which is the supposed center of the fold, right? And we can label it if we want to. So now we have everything all lined up. We're good to go, right? And I'm going to try and do a quick zoom in of this really quick. Right? And see how everything looks nice and clean? It's an anticline, right? And this is how it lines up using this page, right? See how my dips line up? It's perfect. All right, hopefully this helps you guys study, and I'll see you guys next week in class. Thanks.